ready?
How many minutes have we been in the waiting room?
How many minutes have we?
What?
Can you hear me? Yeah.
I can hear you, but can you hear me? Okay.
Okay. I think we're live now.
Cool.
Okay.
Looks like we're live. Hey everyone, welcome to another day, another week of fun stuff that we're going to be talking about. What we've been up to in Plasma Land. First and foremost, how are you doing, Lewis?
Pretty good. Pretty alright. How are you?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm doing really good too. I'm super excited for this week because we have a bunch of new extensions that we're rolling out as part of our goal and our commitment to ship 50 extensions by March 31st of this year. We're releasing two today, two really exciting ones, and should be good. So first and foremost, Lewis, you want to talk a little bit about this one? It's a Stripe Newtab dashboard. What's that all about?
Yeah, so we use Stripe to collect customer payment when they use eToro. And so internally we have a certain goal we want to hit by end of years. So we decide to build a dashboard, right? So that every time you open a new tab, you see this kind of you see the goal, you see the progress, you get motivated, you want to work harder and stuff like that. Yeah, it actually integrating with our kind of a Stripe production API, read only of course, and yeah, the main idea is so that we can track our progress and
So
internally.
how can kind of like who would this be useful for?
Well, I would say it's actually very useful for a lot of most company, right? I remember, I mean, at Facebook though they have like that huge giant dashboard that show like the how many users have subscribed to Facebook and so on in the early day. I think almost any company would have that, right? But as your company become more remote and you become more distributed, you can see that this kind of dashboard will still be needed within the internal team, right? Yeah, but maybe instead of having to put it up on a whiteboard somewhere, you have it on your new tab.
Right. So this is on the Newtab. It shows kind of like the big metrics that your team wants to hit.
Yeah,
So in the remote world. So you're saying this would be useful for remote teams, and it's mostly useful for businesses, right?
I would say so. Yeah. Well, internally we use it for us internally, right? But I would say that a similar concept can be adapted for like progressing for personal goal, right? You know, so you have certain goal you want to track, you can put that here as well in the same kind of vein, yeah. But the current version of dashboard focus mainly on our Stripe analytic, our Stripe kind of a MMR and AR. Yeah.
Got it. What were some of the challenges you faced building this extension?
I'll say the key challenge would be playing around with the Stripe API a little bit. Yeah, the Stripe API. So Stripe Node API, the Node client actually trying to spawn webhook, but there's no webhook listener available from the service worker, right? So from a browser service worker. So you basically will have to do a lot of those kind of data querying, like manually. Well, thankfully, the typing is the exact same though. The typing for the Stripe request is the exact same. So I can just use the Stripe kind of the Stripe package for the typing, and just use raw fetch for the rest of the fetching data. And then the rest of it, it really is just calculating the number. And then after that is just all fun, right? Playing around with Airbnb, this uh, like charting API. That part is a little bit challenging too, because the library, I would say that a lot of the example was made just to show that hey, this is how you do it. Very very big example. So you have to kind of look through the code to understand what's going on.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So in terms of like extension specific quirks and challenges, you would say it was primarily kind of the webhook not being a thing in the service worker runtime, right? Any
Yeah.
other kind of extension specific quirks you had to deal with?
There's actually another issue with the bundling, actually the product bundling. So when I was trying to make the prod version of the extension. So because V6 depend on D3.js, and D3.js uses D3.js use ESM for their bundle, and because of that, because of ESM, um, when our bundler Parcel tried to take all of the dependencies and bundling them into the prod version, it will be it hoisting some of the dependency on top, and it trim a lot of them out. And a lot of time it mistakenly trims stuff that's actually needed in a bundle. Um, and this is, I think, due to because the ESM support in Parcel is still not very good, at least when it comes to with scope hosting. And because scope hosting is a concept that was really focusing on like the common JS format, the CJS format, really. So what happened is I have to go into the framework, add the new flag that we will be discussing down there for the no hoist flag that will allow us to disable the hoisting mechanism of the prod bundling, so that we can actually bundling the whole graph library into this extension. It's a optional flag, right? You It's not like by default it's still hosting, and the benefit with hosting is it will allow like the dead code elimination to be much more efficient, right? That's the idea. With scope hosting, your bundle is slightly going to be smaller, but a lot of time it might remove stuff that's needed though. So with the no hosting flag, your bundle will be bigger, but it will likely work. Yeah.
Got it. So it's a trade-off between you want your extension to be small or do you want your extension to work? And I'm
Yeah.
sure most people would say, I want my extension to work.
Precisely,
So
yeah. And it's not that big either. This extension with the whole graph library costs about two megabyte. So
okay, that's
not
not
too
too
bad. Not too bad, yeah.
bad. And especially considering like it's not like you're loading those 2 megabytes every single time you open a new tab. It's only on the first download, right? And then it gets saved to your computer. So even if it was like, let's say 10 megabytes, it's not that bad.
Yeah. I also added a cool little fish, like the blurring that you're seeing is actually not Photoshop. It's actually a feature within the within the dashboard itself. There's a little toggle that looks like there's a toggle with a ninja icon, so you can toggle in ninja mode to blur some of the text when we stream or when we like showing stuff, and then we can toggle them back into spacesuit mode when we're working. Yeah. So it could be a case where someone don't want to be distracted by a number too.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The blur has multiple features. Awesome. Cool. Fun stuff. So that's the one for this week. And then the other one is lenses.
Yeah.
So let me go ahead and play the video. So lenses is a way to make the internet fit whatever mood you want it to fit. So the first website we're starting with is twitter.com. You see on the right-hand side, we have the lenses section with different moods or kind of emotions, ways of talking, whatever you like. So happy, angry, friendly, loving, like an anime villain, and then the original tweet. You can toggle any one of these. And what will happen is using GPT will take all of the tweets in your timeline and automatically make them happy, make them friendly, make them sound like they were written by an anime villain. and you'll see your entire feed transform. So in this case, if I show you guys happy, so if I pause here, check this out, friends. We just launched Palace, an AI that answers questions you have about browser extensions. Woohoo, we just hit 5,000 stars. And if you look at the original tweets, they're much more kind of, I mean, this one's pretty happy, but it doesn't have a woohoo in it and stuff. So you can see that that's kind of how it works. And yeah, that's pretty much lenses. I think the next steps are kind of to think about, you know, what other ways we can augment, because I think extensions are really powerful in that they allow you to augment the last mile. So what other ways we can use AI to augment the view of the internet in a more interesting way that aligns with what you want. Like sometimes I don't want to hear like kind of negativity. Maybe there's a time where like I'm in a super good mood and I just want to see positive stuff. And the way I thought about it was, well, you can either filter things so you can make tweets not show up if they're negative, but I thought it would just be more fun and a little bit more chaos if an AI actually rewrote a tweet to be more fun, even if it was written by some miserable person and completely negative. So that's kind of what Lenses is, and it should be available in the next 2 to 3 days. Just waiting on submitting to the Chrome Web Store and going through review. But yeah.
Nice. What's the most challenging thing about working on this?
I think probably the most challenging thing was getting this so the messaging feature from Plasmo helped a ton. I think if I didn't have that, that would definitely be my number one most challenging feature. Because of that, it made things a lot easier. I will say the thing that was quite challenging was thinking about how to place this within Twitter that makes sense. So putting it on the sidebar, sort of having a similar UI to the rest of the Twitter UI so it doesn't look out of place. And then the other thing was, how can I actually take these tweets that are coming in? And if you notice, like when you click happy, if you see on the left-hand side, there's a blur. And the blur comes in because GPT is thinking and figuring out how can I make this tweet happy? And we want to hide the previous version of the tweet because the user has asked us to make the tweet happy. So there's a blur, and thinking about how can I actually add this blur into the tweet, and then how can I get rid of the blur meant, and the issue with that is like this Lenses content script is a React component, right? But it's a different React component from the one that's on the tweet. So if you see original here, that's the React component, and the blur is within that file. So how can these two communicate with one another? Well, one of the ways to do so is to use the DOM as a mechanism for them to communicate with one another. So the way that it works is when you click happy, this text will get sent to GPT, and once GPT has answered, the DOM data attribute for this element, there will be a new one, and then this content script will have a mutation observer that figures out, oh, there's a new data attribute on this element, and then we'll actually get rid of the blur. So that's kind of how that works, but it was tricky to kind of facilitate that. Just there were a lot of moving parts. Yeah. But yeah, overall it was a pretty fun experience, and I think I definitely learned a ton about mutation observers. I think mutation observers are probably the most important thing you need to know and be like super good at if you want to build a good browser extension that injects onto a modern web page.
What is the most kind of tricky thing with modern mutation observer?
So the challenging thing that I found very early on was when you watch, let's say, the document element, right, or the body with a mutation observer, and you specify, so when you create a mutation observer, you have to give it a configuration, and there are certain things you can give it where you can tell it, hey, I'm looking for these types of mutations. So for example, there's one called attributes. What that does is anytime an attribute changes on a DOM element, you're going to get a callback. There are other things like child lists and so on. Now the tricky thing is there is, if you specify child list, which presumably means you're going to get a mutation callback anytime a nested child, kind of gets either added, mutated, whatever, what have you. The tricky thing is that doesn't actually happen. If the child is nested a lot, it doesn't actually trigger this change. So what I found was I would find a ancestor of the DOM element that I want to look for, and then I figure out in my mutation observer, oh, hey, that changed. So let me go ahead and query using that DOM element. Let me query selector for my element. And we use this in Plasmo. So with the inline anchor, for example, we watch for changes in body, and then we query. So anytime a change is made in the body, we query the selector on body for the specific element that we're looking for. In my case, I'm doing it a little bit, I'm not querying the body, but I'm querying a sub-element that I know is an ancestor. So it's a little bit more performant because I have a more specific use case. But I would say that is definitely the piece that is kind of missing. The other piece I would say that's important is sometimes your extension will attach your mutation observer too late, and the element was already added into the DOM, and your mutation observer won't be able to watch for that event because it already happened. And the trick with that is to actually, when you create the mutation observer, you can call it artificially with the added node key of the body, and that will automatically re-trigger the mutation observer to run even if the body was already added before the mutation observer was created. That was a trick I learned from a Stack Overflow question and answer about Chrome extensions.
Yeah. Using the key, right?
Yeah, you can give it an added nodes key, and then you specify the DOM element, and it will artificially make the mutation observer believe that this was an added node when it really wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's actually, I think there's a React use something similar to reconciling. So you know how when you render a huge list of items in React, right? The recommendation is actually to add a key. You add a key into each of these elements so that the rendering algorithm, the virtual DOM can diff which one has changed and so on, so that it can re-render appropriately.
Interesting. Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's I think all these things are like you just have to go through that and figure it out.
Yeah. And the funny thing is, a lot of time, right, in a React component, sometimes you have a component that have a state that is stale, but then the state management didn't understand to re-render it, and a lot of time you have to just manually trigger the re-render by just swapping the key. Happen a lot. It's actually happened in the Airbnb. Yeah, actually happened in the Graph too. Graph is one of the huge example of that. A lot of the Graph, so the Graph API that I was using, this act from Airbnb, right? They employ the same principle that because a lot of Graph when they render are SVG, right? And so if a piece of data changes, a lot of time SVG are very static, and so when you attach a piece of data into it, and you render it out, it doesn't really mutate by itself. You kind of have to add a key and say, hey, actually they do a math.random with data.now just to say, hey, every time that something actually changes, let's just re-render the whole thing and just swap it into a new key all the time. And that works in most cases, yeah. Like for example, when you draw a bunch of points. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, no, there's like getting these systems to do things is tricky just because there's so many moving parts.
Yeah. I think that the reason why we need this kind of key is in a vein is for optimization, right? Mostly optimization. Because the reason why the key is there is so that the browser don't have to do too much work. You just have to check the diff between this key, right?
Yeah.
Because otherwise it will constantly re-render the stuff, especially even in the normal DOM too, like in your case as well, right? The reason why the mutation observer doesn't trigger is so that it can save a cycle, or so it doesn't have to check all the time, right?
Yeah, well, it's listening and the event already happened, so there is nothing to listen to.
Yeah.
So you have to manually trigger the event again and pretend and have it pretend like the body was added when it really wasn't. Yeah.
Also, a lot of time with the did you add mutation observer? Which element did you add the observer to?
So I added it to the document element.
Yeah, that the topmost, right? A lot of people actually don't know about that, but a lot of people actually don't only know about the body and the head, I think.
Yeah, I think for my case, it probably would be fine to add it to the body. But I mean, for me, it was sort of like potentially in the future, I might want to also check for like, I don't know, let's say scripts being added, things like that. So there was no harm to add it to the document element.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So yeah, 2 cool extensions, and we'll continue to add more. If you have any suggestions for extensions for us to make, just to showcase how powerful Plasmo is, how powerful browser extensions can be, then let us know. Moving on to the factory. How did we build these extensions so quickly? That is the Plasmo framework. So, Louis, you want to talk a little bit more about production bundling and how we've improved it?
Yeah. So, 2 things that we added recently was, so I noticed that the source map, the quality of source map was pretty bad in some of the previous version of Plasmo. As we switching over to, we were trying out ESBuild as an optimizer, and we were trying out a bunch of other stuff about source map. And when I had to debug the source map myself to because my production version was not working right with my Stripe dashboard extension. So I had to use the source map to understand what the hell is going on and see what bundle is not being added. And while doing so, I noticed that the source map with the ESBuild bundle, ESBuild optimizer was pretty bad. It doesn't even so, and the reason why was because ESBuild doesn't instrument the existing source map. It make its own it create another pair of source map that's supposed to chain to the original JS source map that already been bundled by Parcel. But that doesn't play very well with the Chrome inspector. It doesn't know how to chain the source map, I think. So what happened is I refactored it a little bit. So now we actually have 2 source map behavior with the product bundle. So by default, there will be no source map generated. That's to keep your extension, like small and tiny, and because source map can blow the bundle very quickly. It can be giant. But when you need source map to debug You can do the plasma build with a source map flag. That will actually generate separate source map into .map file. This is very useful for when you want to instrumenting it on production. And so in your code, you only have the reference to the source map file. And the source map can be moved to a separate, you can upload it to like a logging services or an alerting service like Sentry. Or is this Sentry or Segment? One of those. I think it's Sentry. Yeah. You can use them so that when you receive an error from your extension, you can instrumenting it with your source map to point out to exactly where in the source code the issue is. Yeah. And the second behavior is inline source map. This is very useful when you want to just debugging it locally. So you trying to your production not working, you're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So you would just use inline source map. That would add the source map right into your bundle. So you can open up the extension on your browser and take a look at it and see what the hell's going on. Yeah. And these two behavior, when we make source map, we are now using Tensor. Tensor is a kind of should we go? Yeah, Tensor is kind of a JavaScript optimizer, basically.
Awesome.
It was one of the most highly used and most popular too. Yeah, it's not as fast as ESBuild. That's the main issue with it. ESBuild is almost 10 times faster than Tensor when it comes to optimizing. Yeah, but I think ESBuild also, but the main problem with ESBuild it doesn't work well with the source map stuff. So when no source map is needed, ESBuild will be deployed.
Got it. So over here we have a bullet. Tensor will be used instead of ESBuild. Does that also apply? So you're saying that also applies for this?
Yeah, for the source map too. Yeah, precisely.
Okay, got it. So no hoist and source map, we'll use Tensor.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, if you think about it, like this Plasma build, I think we should optimize for Plasma dev speed, but Plasma build speed isn't so important, right?
Yeah, I mean, by default, the default behavior with ESBuild actually pretty fast when there's no source map needed. So
Right.
This behavior with the Tensor stuff is really for when you need to debug your production build. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So on the second behavior is the no hoisting. No hoist, which I have described previously, is the idea of not hoisting all of your import on top of the bundle, but just keep them within, keep them where they are, kind of deal. So so there's no sorting, there's no kind of sorting a bundle to the top of your production bundle, and and that would allow you to work around some of the ESM bundling stuff. And when the dead code animation, it's not working well.
Yeah. So just like I think this might be valuable to some people or helpful to some people. How do you know that happened? Like, if you're not a Plasmo core maintainer or creator, and you don't know the internals of Plasmo and how Parcel works under the hood, and you're having this issue where you're building the Stripe Newtab dashboard, and you create a prod bundle but doesn't work, how can you figure out that this is indeed the issue and you need to do this?
So you use source map, right? Just make Plasma build with inline source map. That would point you to the exact place where some import is, basically it will tell you that some import is undefined. And that is basically a sure sign that the dead code elimination has removed the wrong thing.
Got it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's also it's a little bit finicky. You have to experimenting with it a little bit, but usually when something's undefined on your prod bundle, but totally working in your dev bundle, then it's a telltale sign that Yeah, the dead code elimination is not working well, or is removing the wrong thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes sense. Um, cool. So yeah, we have some cool stuff with prod bundling, and then some gotchas with ES build that we've addressed. And then finally, I think we talked about this a little bit last week, but we refreshed the landing page. Um, so this is actually not the case. Um, we revamped all of the copy. I don't know if you saw that, Lewis. So I think so this is definitely revamped. You're right.
Yeah.
But even this is also revamped.
Mm.
And this.
Really? I don't
Yeah,
know. I felt like those section did not, right? No.
they did. Yeah. So like focus on your business logic on day one. And then I modified these a little bit.
Okay.
And then
I didn't notice that they
yeah.
were different.
Yeah. Also the bold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the landing page has significantly gotten better, and I think also one of the things that we really wanted to highlight was the framework. That's the free and open source MIT license software. Is readily available. It's completely free. You can use it. So we wanted to highlight that here. We also wanted to highlight like the docs specifically for the framework, right? So we have the docs here, but those are docs for Plasmo, and Plasmo is a platform that has the framework. Plasmo also has Itero, and then a bunch of other stuff too. Now, like Palace and so on and so forth. So we wanted to highlight that there are multiple things here going on here, and the framework is a part of it, and it's completely free and open source. So we added that. The reason we added this is because we have gotten a few questions on our Discord server. If you're not on it already, go to plasma.com/s/d for Discord. But we've gotten a bunch of questions saying, I would love to develop a browser extension, but I don't necessarily want to pay the however much it is on the pricing page. And the answer to that is you can use the framework to develop the browser extension, but if you want to take it one step further, you want to make it easy to iterate, you want to make it easy to test, you want to make it super easy to publish, stuff like that, that's when you can enroll in Itero, enroll into our platform that's paid, and pay for, up to 2 extensions, up to 5 extensions, 15, and so on and so forth. So that's kind of idea. And yeah, the pricing section also got a big revamp. So now it looks really snazzy. That's pretty cool. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Anything else on your end, Louis?
Oh yeah, I think the repo will get to 5K. Yeah, 5,000.
It did. So let me show the video.
Nice.
So
hey, try the lands here. Try swapping the land. Like an anime villain.
Sure.
What's I gonna say?
Today we achieved a glorious milestone. Our browser extension framework has been honored with 5,000 stars on GitHub. All of you have helped us reach this level, and for that we are infinitely grateful. But it's only a start. Soon we will conquer the world with our almighty power. Wahaha.
That's fun.
And then let's make it angry. I don't know how this could be angry, but let's see.
Wow, it's actually very fast. That's interesting.
Yeah. Wow. And then you can go back to the original. So yeah, we hit 5,000 stars. We just want to give a huge thank you to everyone that supported us along the way. There are a lot of milestones that come with building a project like this, and this is a really big one. So just wanted to take a sort of pause and say thank you, and we continue to build.
Yes, sir. Great.
Yeah, man, it's only been 6 months. It's insane, but we keep going.
Yeah, we'll see. Hey, next milestone. Oh, what is it? 14,700 stars.
That sounds fun. But yeah, 5,000 stars. Got to 400 Twitter followers. That's also pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we just keep going. We keep building.
Sounds good. Yeah. What is the challenge ahead for us right now?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is continuing to solve the problems that extension developers have. And specifically, there is this idea where the people that encounter the problems, like this is just a generic way of thinking about things. It's not specific about Plasma. It's not specific about browser extensions, but just in general, the people that experience problems in the world are like far removed from the people that have power to fix the problems. And we want to be cognizant of that. So when we're building this Plasma framework and so on, we experienced the problem firsthand, and we built this framework, and we built this platform. We built Itero to make it easier to beta test and so on. But as we build out more software, we are slowly but surely increasing that distance between us and the problems that extension developers face, because we are no longer being extension developers. We're being kind of developers of platforms and frameworks. So we don't encounter those problems as fiercely as we used to. So the toughest challenge for us this year is to reduce that gap, either by talking to extension developers, which we are really good at. We have a great community on Discord. But then the other one, this is why we're doing this 50 extensions project, is to shorten that gap and really understand what are the problems that extension developers face by actually building extensions and facing those problems. Only then can we truly understand what it means for us to build an amazing framework, an amazing platform, and to continue innovating in this area. So I think that is the toughest challenge in the near term. As we reduce that gap, we're going to start finding ideas, which we already have so many of, but there will be more and more. And we need to, the next challenge is balancing, making that gap small, but at the same time, innovating and producing these amazing ideas and so on and so forth. So it's going to take a balance, but I think we'll be able to do it. We've already kind of maintained that balance, and we just need to continue doing it.
Nice. I wouldn't expect a long answer, but sounds good, boss.
Yeah, well, I think this is fundamental to Plasma, so it's important to have a strong, concrete answer. And we've been thinking a lot about this, so just wanted to communicate that as well. So yeah, it's good to have the opportunity to do so.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. With that, I guess we can call it a stream. See you guys next week, Wednesday, around the same time. Maybe a little bit earlier, maybe a little bit later. Depends on how things go. But see you guys next week, and thanks for tuning in.
Yes, sir.
Take care.